Wait for you to sit down, or be nice and let you stand up. Good afternoon, Rotarians. Emma, will you open us up an invocation, please?
Yes,
sir?
by all means. Dear God, thank you for the opportunity again to gather together here as our Rotary Club to be with us this day. Bless the information we receive. Bless this food to our bodies. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. If you'll join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. I don't believe we have any guests today. I do believe that we need some. Oh yes, we do. Sorry. Thanks, Sean.
You brought the guest.
I brought the guests and I completely forgot. My oldest daughter Michaela is here with us today. Most of y'all know her from before, but glad to have her. All right. Will, can you do $50? Trying to look away. Thank you.
All right, do I start off the...
Yes, go right ahead.
All right, well, I'm happy for a good meal today.
I'm happy I got to the Christmas party without any complaints.
That's good.
I agree, it's been a good day.
Good meal I didn't have to cook. I don't have to clean up after.
I'm happy I remembered Michaela.
Austin, what you happy about, man?
I'm happy for a day off tomorrow.
That's good.
I'm happy for Brett Venables.
All right, well, we're happy about over here.
And what does this go to?
Alright, so I'm not gonna do like former Rotarians used to do and make change. And y'all know I don't often put in files, but that covers the three of us. So I'm gonna let Elijah go first and say what he's thankful for.
I'm happy to spend the day with y'all. For the hour.
Alright, now I'll let Kelly go next. Good food. Alright, and I'm thankful I got to visit my grandma today and to be able to do good in the world. And for John to remember.
Oh, I've already asked it.
Now you can say it.
What does this money go to?
Good in the world. Thank you, Will. I believe that we have a few announcements. I'm going to let E go first, if that's okay.
Yes, we'll be glad to.
Edie? Edie?
You were looking
Go right
at
ahead. Ladies first.
Okay, we need backpackers for tomorrow,
I can help.
okay? Amber, correct, Katie. Kate, I'm sorry, I'm calling on your name.
It's okay. It's okay.
I forget my own some days. Yeah. All right, now,
Oh no, you just jumped on me. I was trying to be there for you, man.
you get after me all the time. All right, next Wednesday, who can help? Because we have to double back next Wednesday. I have Claude, I have possibly Robbie. Who else?
I think I can.
It's at the same time.
9:30.
Sorry,
Anybody else?
15th?
I think I can.
Whatever
Yes.
next Wednesday is.
That would be 15.
Okay. We double pack that day because I didn't wanna do it the same day as our meeting in a different place, which we'll talk about. And they get out of school early, so we have to do it. Thank you, Keith, I'm glad you're gonna come tomorrow.
Thank you, Edie. Heath, do you have an announcement for us, please?
Are you sure this time?
Yes, sir. Sorry. I was looking that general direction, but I was going to give you a break from coming out of the door. So.
I wanted to thank y'all all on behalf of the Lawrence Police Department for all the toys and money that y'all raised for our Christmas in the city. It has done a wonderful job. Paige definitely said to thank y'all because y'all really did well for the 12 to 17-year-old age group. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for doing that. I'm going to say it again, and I probably shouldn't have reminded y'all or told y'all last week because I know it confused a few, but next week we will be at the Ridge. I will send out a reminder email next week. I apologize for not doing that earlier today. Any other announcements, things that anyone would like to share? No? Okay. Thank you. At this point, it's my favorite time, as we know, because I get to eat. And it's also one of my favorite times, especially today, because I brought the speaker. This is Elijah Norris, and he is a paramedic with AirMed, but he's also a good friend of mine. He attends church with me, and we've been good friends for quite some time. And he's going to share a little bit about some mission work that he has participated in with first responders. So without further ado, Elijah.
All right, good afternoon. So I'm glad that Matt finally claimed me. Claimed me as a good friend, so that's good to hear. But yeah, we attend church together and we enjoy each other's company, and Matt's a good friend of mine as well. And I'm glad that he asked me to come speak with y'all today, and looking forward to what I have to share, and I hope you're blessed by it. And if you have any questions afterwards, feel free to ask. So my name's Elijah Norris. I'm a flight paramedic here in Greenville. I know I look like a game warden right now, but I'll explain the uniform in a minute. First time I put it on, I told my wife, I look like a game warden, but I'm a paramedic. But I'll explain why I have this on in a minute. I grew up in Conway, right outside of Myrtle Beach, so I'm not naturally from the upstate. I grew up there, moved here for paramedic school in Greenville. Ended up meeting my wife, who's from Abbeville, and that's where we live now, in Abbeville. I've had a very interesting career as a paramedic. Not your typical career, not someone who has worked in ambulance and worked 911 their entire life, which is super noble, by the way. I've had all kinds of opportunities that the Lord's opened up for me to be able to go do some things. So some of that has been when I started flying. We have the FEMA contract for the nation. So for all of the natural disasters, and even with COVID-19, we get to do a lot of things with that. So I've done hurricane deployments, and Hurricane Harvey being one of the big ones that I've done that hit Texas several years ago. If you remember, there was a lot of flooding. The Beaumont, Texas hospital was completely surrounded by water, and I was out there helping evacuate that entire hospital, which was a lot of work. I saw a lot of people sleeping underneath their vehicles at the airports. There were buses lined up with people sitting on them. And the crazy thing for me was, I love hearing what you guys are all about, because honestly I don't know very much about Rotary, I'll just be honest with you. It kind of discouraged me at that time to get on an airplane with a patient and fly maybe 2 hours, a 2-hour drive away, which would be like a 30-45 minute flight for me, to move someone to a hospital, and the people there were completely unaware of the suffering that was happening 2 hours away. You know, and I just remember thinking, if you would all just get in a vehicle and just drive down there and pick them up and bring them back, we could get all these people evacuated in no time. But the Lord was still doing a lot of good in those areas too, and people were working together to do things. So I've done several hurricane deployments. Our company also has the contract with NASA. So I'm on the NASA Air Medical Evacuation Team. So if there's ever an emergency at the launch site down in Florida, then we respond to those emergencies and fly those astronauts out, or any of the ground workers out, to the area hospital. So that was a cool contract to be a part of. We got to help them start that back up because, you know, NASA wasn't sending people into space for quite a while. Now they are, and they've even gone private with that, with Elon Musk doing his thing, and then Boeing's doing their thing. So we got to train with all of them and help them set that program up. And that was a pretty interesting thing to be a part of as well. One of the other opportunities I got to do was I got to go to Haiti, and a friend of mine runs a air medical program in Haiti. And Haiti, you know, was affected by an earthquake in 2010 that was very bad. They had the most recent one also, but there was one in 2010. And there's this guy who's a billionaire out of New York City, owns a lot of TV stations and things like that, but he's a helicopter pilot for fun. He went down to Haiti and started flying people around because he knew the infrastructure was terrible. So he was flying people around, supplies around, and then decided to start his own air medical evacuation platform in Haiti to help those people. So they use American volunteers. I've been to Haiti and flown in Haiti and flew people around. Just so you can get an idea of how impactful that is in a third world country. One of the patients that I flew was a kid. He was about maybe 10 years old, and you know, obviously they don't have the same building codes as we do. So they have electrical wires that are just hanging different places above ground, not really protected well. And somehow or another, this kid had come in contact with an electrical wire and got burned pretty badly. And they carried him for over 12 hours walking on foot to get him to a hospital. And then that drive through the mountains on the rough roads that they have to get to where the burn center is in Haiti would have taken them, I want to say it was around 12 more hours. So with the helicopter, we were able to hop over the mountains 15 minutes and grab this kid and hop 15 minutes back across the mountains to the burn center. So it's providing such a huge impact to the nation of Haiti there. And they're doing a lot of great things with that there. And that was really cool to get to be a part of that experience. I went there in 2018. And most recently they've had the earthquake, and they were a huge part of getting those people moved out of there and evacuated. My friend that runs that program personally said he triaged over 300 patients during the initial stages of that earthquake. So huge hands-on deck situation. I've also had an opportunity to go to Ecuador, and that's kind of what I really wanted to share with you today. I went to Ecuador in 2019 and got to do ministry with a lot of the fire departments there. And there's a missionary in Ecuador who's there full-time, lives there. He's a pastor from New York, but he's got a heart for first responders. And that's always been, obviously, one of my hearts because I am one. And I also have an undergrad ministry, so I've always asked God to kind of, hey, show me how can I combine these two passions of mine. So I ended up in Ecuador doing some work with some fire departments. And then I got to go back this year and work with a lot of the police officers, which was great. So that's where this uniform came from. This was the uniform that we wore there. These guys that we went down there with, I was the only guy that was not a police officer. There's a bunch of police officers from the United States, a lot of them from Michigan, they're from Kansas, Ohio, Florida, all over the place, went to Ecuador to work with these guys. So you can see on the screen here, this was the missions organization that we went with, and the area we were in was Guano, and the organization that I worked with is called Tactica, and it's teaching authorities Christian truths in Central America. They're based in Costa Rica, so that's why I said Central America, even though Ecuador is actually in South America. All right. So why do we need to do ministry with first responders? Why should we take care of our first responders? And obviously this is probably near and dear to your heart as well. I actually wrote my senior thesis in my undergrad for ministry on how churches could build a strategy in ministering to first responders. And some of the statistics that I found is pretty staggering when it comes to first responder mental health. And there was a New York study that found that 13% of firefighters battling PTSD, or 13% of firefighters battle PTSD, 53% battle anxiety, 53% battle depression. And you can see the general population comparisons there. So 13% PTSD, whereas 3.5% the general population battles that. 53% battle anxiety and depression, whereas 2.9% and 7% of the general population died. So it's a significant increase there. There was also a 2016 Arizona study that found twice as many EMTs die from suicide than the general population does. There was a 2018 study found that 0.014% of all Americans died by suicide, while 15% of firefighters have attempted suicide at least once. And there was a North Carolina study of EMTs that found that 22.2% of their EMTs in North Carolina were heavy drinkers and 28.8% were binge drinkers, compared to 5.6% and 15.2% of your general population. And then 100% of paramedics have experienced a traumatic event which has caused a 9-fold increase in alcohol drinking, a 12-fold increase in missing work, and a 4-fold increase in using psychiatric medication. So there's all kinds, this is just a small snapshot, a small picture of first responder in the mental health epidemic that's really happening. And I can share with you personally, I have seen things that I don't care to see again. I really would love to forget about, and they're really difficult to forget about. I would say one of the worst things you can ask a first responder is, what is the worst thing you've seen? You know, it's an innocent question. We know where it's coming from. But if someone asked me that last week, and literally my head started just filtering through all the bad stuff that I've seen that I wanted to forget. So it's first responders need help. They need your help. Why are they statistics the way they are? Hopelessness. The number one cause is hopelessness. We're trained well to do our jobs. Police officers are trained well to do their jobs. When they get into situations that are high stress, quick decision making, they're trained to do that. It's not necessarily that gets them down. They found that a lot of this hopelessness, and there's studies to back this, stems from the lack of administrative support, peer support, and community support. That's where first responders really start getting down. For me, I'm trained to take care of people as a paramedic. I'm trained to be able to make quick life-saving decisions, how to be able to do my skills, do those things, and we train hard to do those. So those aren't necessarily the things that get us. It's when you feel like no one is supporting you anymore, and you're still doing those things. It's really when it starts making you feel hopeless. So, as a Christian, the church's answer to hopelessness is the gospel. We share Jesus with them, and we explain to them why the world is the way it is today. Why we see the things we do see. Why we know people are not perfect. And then we share the gospel with them. So this was something I got to do in Ecuador. So just going to share some pictures with you. This was our police bus that they picked us up on. So we flew in, and we all got to Ecuador around about the same time in the airport. And we had the guys coming in that had, now guns are illegal in Ecuador. So we had guys coming in with ammunition, guys coming in with weapons, uppers and lowers and all kinds of different gun parts, essentially. And so they had all their baggage, and we're carrying all kinds of stuff. And we were so nervous about getting through the airport with all this. And it was really cool because the police and the military were set up waiting on us. And they just saw us and just waved us right through, and then got us onto this bus and escorted us out. So it's kind of, we felt a little bit of VIP-ish going on while we were there. That was the front of the bus there. This was the hotel. The first morning, the police, and this is in Quito, Ecuador, which is the capital. It's at 9,500 feet elevation. And just to give you perspective, you're at about 900 feet right here. So that's a huge difference. We would meet every morning and do a little staff devotion or a team devotion before we'd go out and minister to the police officers that we were working with. And these guys, again, all of them are cops, or some of them are translators, but the majority there are police officers. They all have SWAT backgrounds, because the guys we were training in Ecuador were the elite of the Ecuadorian National Police. They were what we would call SWAT. They call them Special Operations. This was the gear that we took down there. So all of that stuff lined on the stage there is stuff that people donated and we personally carried in our luggage down there. And these guys had to memorize Bible verses in order to get this gear. So throughout the week, they had a list of Bible verses that they would memorize, and then they would come to us and read it to us, and we would try to, as best as we could, follow along the Spanish Bible while they were reciting Spanish like that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, all right, I got it. You know, but they would really study because they can't get this stuff in Ecuador. So they were super excited about seeing these items. And it was anything from knives to handcuffs to boots to camelbacks to tactical gear, all kinds of stuff in there. This was a volcano. I just took some pictures of the landscape on the way out. That was a volcano that actually erupted at some time before, and that's why there's no point in the middle. There's actually a hole in the middle because it's already erupted once. It's another volcano that's at the top of that one is at 18,000 feet. And that was another one. So there were 3 volcanoes right around where we were at. This was the training compound that we went to in Guano, Ecuador. So you see they're very militaristic, the police department there. Apparently sometime in the years past they had a whole military versus police coup kind of thing happen. Now they're on good terms, but the police has turned very militaristic themselves. So the guys that you see in the camouflage on the left, those are your special forces guys, and the guys on the right are kind of the normal police officers for them. But they did this whole, they're very pomp and circumstance. They did this whole shebang and introduced us and wanted to show us the stuff that they did. So it was good. These were the scriptures that they had to memorize, which I typed this out, and it's several pages of scripture that these guys, they know more scripture than I do now by heart. And it was kind of embarrassing, honestly, that they could memorize it that fast. This was all of our instructors in the morning again saying a prayer and doing the devotion before we go out to train with the guys. I thought this picture was pretty cool because we pass out these Bibles and actually have one that I can set out on the table if you guys want to see at the end. But it's a Bible that's in Spanish for these guys, and some of these guys have never seen one. So it was interesting to watch, like this guy, I took a picture of him because he grabbed his Bible and just immediately started opening it up and reading and digging through it. And the guy on the left, his name is Luke. He's a missionary in Ecuador. He was serving as a translator with us that day. And there was another guy who just opened it up, started digging through the scripture and just reading. At the end of every day, they would watch a movie, and it was a faith-based movie, so usually something like Courageous, if you've ever seen that, or Fireproof, or Indivisible, and I think there was a couple other movies they watched. But at the end of the movie, there was always a gospel presentation, and that's what Dan, the guy on the right standing up, that's what he was doing, and the guy beside of him is his translator. So my part, since I was not a cop, is the medical part, the tactical medical side of things, because I didn't mention I was in the Navy as a Navy corpsman, and I worked with the Marine Corps, and so I have some tactical medical knowledge. And so I went there and taught these guys how to do this. So this was the tourniquet training. So they had to learn how to put these tourniquets on, and they had to put them on quickly because you can bleed out so fast. So they had 30 seconds to put these tourniquets on. If they couldn't put them on in time, they all had to do push-ups. And we had to do push-ups with them. So this was a picture of them getting dropped after not getting their 30 seconds tourniquets on. But they had to leave the tourniquet on while they did the push-up. So they learned very quickly how to put tourniquets on in under 30 seconds. So one of the, just a God thing, when I was sitting there in the classroom, the guy that leads this ministry came up to me and said, I hope you brought your A game. And because I was the only non-cop there and the only paramedic there, I was like, oh, who got hurt? You know, and I was ready for that. And he goes, no, I got this captain here who says they just got a helicopter and they want to use it in our training. And I said, man, so we're at like 9,000 feet. It's probably an A-star, which is what that is. They fly high elevations. And I said, A-stars and high elevations are not good for fat people. So they're probably not going to fly me. You know? And he's like, man, just go check it out and see what they can do. So all right. So this guy took me to this police air base that they had there and showed me their helicopter. And so we started talking about it and figuring out how we could incorporate it into the training that we were doing there. And the leaders of the ministries there, they were like, there's no way we could ever get a helicopter in a third world country like this to be a part of our training. So they were super excited about it. And then once the pilots there realized that I was a flight paramedic in the States, they were just like, man, we've been praying for someone to help us get started with a flight medic program here. Because they don't, that's how many flight medics do you have? And they're like, none. But they want to use this for that. So maybe some ongoing conversations for us there and see what we could do. This is a couple guys that were students in my class. They're put in what's called an NPA. You might be familiar with that, but we call it a nasal trumpet. It's just a tube that goes in their nose and goes all the way to the back of their throat. It's just something that helps keep their airway open, to help somebody to be able to breathe. But they all had to put them in on each other, and then they had to do push-ups once they got it in. So, yeah. And there he is doing his push-ups. So you can see that green thing sticking out the end of his nose. This was one of the guys in my small group. So we did have a small group. So throughout the day, the schedule would kind of roll where the instructors would meet, do devotions. We'd go out and have different training evolutions, and then we would take breaks in the middle of that and do what we call small group devotional. And the guys would come together and they'd do a devotion and we'd talk about it. And it was only like 6 of us in my group, so it was a very small group. But it allowed us the opportunity to really dig in deep into what we were studying and to have very intimate conversations. And these guys were opening up saying, hey man, I have addictions to this, I have addictions to this, I need help with this. And they would just really, once one starts opening up, then everybody would start opening up about their same struggles. And it was cool to watch it happen, because then they were praying for each other and supporting each other and helping each other. But this guy was in my small group, and that was right after he came to me and recited one of his memory verses, so grabbed a picture with him. This was in our classroom there. These guys were all sitting down doing their quiet time, reading a devotion. And this was, I'm on the right there. And I told him after I put the gear on, I said, yeah, you don't make gear for big gringos, do you? I said, Ecuador, they're not nearly as tall as we are in the States. So they all had a good laugh with that. The guy on the left, his name is Chavarria. He's a Costa Rican paramedic that was there helping me out. He's also a police officer. And then the guy in the middle was just one of our students. I thought this was a cool picture because this was the guy with the red shirt on. His name is Cam. He lives in, I think it's Kalamazoo, Michigan, maybe. He's a canine SWAT officer up there, on fire for the Lord. And every time we go to eat lunch or dinner, he was pulling his Bible out and grabbing a translator and going to sit down with one of the Ecuadorians and was just having conversation with them, sharing the word with them, just talking to them. Man, it was awesome. And the guy he's talking to there actually came to Christ while we were there. So this was my small group. You can tell the height difference, right? So on my first visit to Ecuador, I actually went to a fire station and asked if I could use the restroom, and they pointed me up the stairs. Well, the stairs were probably this wide, so I was kind of like tiptoeing to get up the stairs. And then once I got to the top, the door was about this tall. So then I opened the door to go in, thinking I would just stand back up, but the ceiling was also this tall. So I had to squat the whole way to the restroom. Yeah, it was rough. Not everything's built the same size. But yeah, so this was my small group. Obviously you can see me, the tall one. And right directly in the middle in the green shirt also, his name is Duvall. He's a full-time missionary there in Ecuador. He served as a translator, and he also works to bring this ministry to Ecuador. He's the guy I was telling you about. He's got a heart for first responders there. He really works with police officers heavily there. And then there's a guy on the right in the green shirt. He was also one of my instructors in there with me. He has a really interesting ministry that he's doing around the world right now, working with human trafficking. He was a police officer in Pennsylvania and decided to leave that to start a ministry with trafficking. And he had all kinds of stories about Africa, Haiti, South America. This guy's been all over the place, but he goes into these countries, figures out how to get to the top of the food chain, and then teaches them how to do trafficking raids. And then he goes on the raids with them, and the people that they have saved is just unreal. It's almost like we're a little ignorant to what's happening out there. It's unreal when you start hearing some of the stories. This was one of our small group times. It was me teaching with the small group. And these were two guys I really developed a good relationship with. And the one on the left actually came to Christ. Great dude, Gonzalo was his name. So the day we actually got to use the helicopter as part of our training, the pilots asked me to teach a landing zone class. And I was like, man, I don't know how to teach your landing zone class. I don't know what you do with your aircraft and all those kinds of things. And they're like, nope, just teach it. I said, all right, well, fill in the gaps. I'm going to teach what I know, and you fill in the gaps. And it became very clear very quickly. They've never taught one. So I taught this class for them, and that was the end of the class picture there. We were getting ready to do a school raid. So that was when I actually did get to fly with them, so that was from inside the cockpit. This was over the city of Riobamba, where they flew me around. I tried to get the better parts of the city, the pictures. And the mountains around there. Kind of the downtown area. So
We'll serve that for Christmas. We'll have that stuff.
yeah, so this is your Christmas dinner. Yeah, so one day they brought lunch out to us, and I opened up the soup bowl and was eating the broth, and I was like, man, this is really good. What is this? And then felt at the bottom, and there was stuff at the bottom, and I pulled it up, and it was a chicken foot. and I looked around at everybody, and I was like, no, I can't do it. And there was an Ecuadorian guy beside me and a Costa Rican guy, and they're like, you gotta eat it, man, you gotta eat it. And I was like, no, I don't have to eat it. They were egging me on to eat it, and they had already got me once in the cafeteria. I ate something they said was really good, and then I ate it, and it was terrible. And they said, I can't believe you ate that. So I said, you're not getting me again. And then they ate theirs, and that was the remnants of if you can see the little piece at the top, the guy holding that in his hand, that was after he ate the chicken foot. He said, this is what it should look like at the end. And he ate it. And I was like, all right, so I tried it. We'll try it again. It was not good. The broth was good, but. So at the end of the week, this is Ryan, if you see him at the bottom there. He's the guy that leads this Tactica ministry. He's full-time in Costa Rica, SWAT officer out of Michigan also. And this is him giving a gospel presentation there, and that's his illustration that he uses. And then he wraps it up with the testimony of this guy, Captain Morales. And during that gospel presentation, they all have their books, and he has them at John 3:16. If it says, for God so loved the world, he has them write their name in. So for me, it would say, for God so loved Elijah. And it makes it personal to them, right? So he has them write their name in. Well, he's done that every time. Well, this Captain Morales did that, and not long, and he gave his life to Christ at this event when he attended this training. Not long after that, he was killed in an officer-involved shooting. And that family reached out to the ministry because they found his Bible that had where he written that in there. So they shared his story now as a part of their ministry of, hey, this is Captain Morales, who was killed in the line of duty, but now we can rejoice in knowing where he is, and we can minister to his family in knowing where he is. So that was a very powerful testimony to wrap the week up with. And these were the gentlemen that had made decisions for Christ, that were standing up. There was 13 out of 37 that did. And this guy's name is Jimmy. If you can, it's probably hard to see on the screen. But he's the guy standing in uniform. Jimmy, he was a really interesting guy. Could still speak his native African language, and just really, really interesting. And he had never seen a Bible before. We had to show him what chapters, books, verses, what it all meant, how to navigate it. And he was really resistant in the beginning. He's like, I'm here for the training. I don't care about anything else you got to say. That was his attitude. And he stood up at the end and he said, there are 20 instructors here with us. He said, but I really think there's 21. And number 21 is God. And it was just really cool to see how his heart had changed during this whole week of us ministering to them, and how he was now, the seed had been planted, and he was seeking, and he was searching, and things were happening in his heart. It was really interesting to see. And this was us praying over Santiago. He's the guy we're laying hands on there in the middle. He was one of our translators from Ecuador, getting ready to go to college in Canada. And I said, man, I hope you bought a coat, because Ecuador is not cold and Canada is. And this is Shava. He was, Shava, he was the guy in the picture with me earlier, Costa Rican paramedic, police officer. He's an Interpol agent, just really interesting background. He can leg press 1,200 pounds for those of you that work out. He's a really stout guy. He shared his testimony with me, and 2 years ago he started losing eyesight, he started losing dexterity, and was just, he's a meathead, you know, so he kept pushing through and wouldn't go get seen. And finally he went blind and went and got seen, and they found a tumor on his brain. They said it was malignant, and they just gave him weeks to live. And he said that he was in the hospital and could do nothing for himself anymore. He had digressed to that point. And like I said, that was 2 years ago. And he was here at this training with us, and he has no deficits now, nothing, and he just gives it all to God. He said it all in 2 weeks. They rescanned him, and it was all gone. And his symptoms all resolved. And he shares his testimony, and he loves the Lord, and he loves serving people and helping people. He's a great dude. He lives in Costa Rica full time. That's where he's from. So that's just me with Jeff on the right. I told you about it earlier. Luke on the left. Luke's living in the Amazon jungle in Ecuador. So he is not a police officer, doesn't work with first responders, but he just came to serve as a translator with us. He's out in the middle of nowhere with his wife. I think I have a picture of him. Yeah, there we go. He's out in the jungle with his wife and all his kids. And they're from Texas, where they moved there with a missions organization, and they're trying to plant a church somewhere where there is no churches. And great guy. The green tube that they were putting down their nose, he let them put one down his. He's like, yeah, if it'll help these guys for training. And I was like, they're not putting one down mine, so I'm not asking you to do it, you know. But he jumped right in there and did it. There was a lot of guys we did what we call buddy carries, where we put each other on our shoulders and run around, you know. He would do it. He would throw him over his shoulders and take off, and then throw him over their shoulders. He was just super involved. He was a really great guy. If you could, just say a prayer for him. They battle loneliness where they're at, because they are so far off the grid, and there are no other Americans or anybody who's not Ecuadorian where he lives. He has a motorcycle that he has to ride around the potholes to get to town to be able to buy stuff that they have to live with. So a huge part of his life is just living, and then they're trying to do ministry in that little village that he's in. And again, this is Jeff and his wife Deanne, full-time there and planning a church there. Right. And this is a video. You said videos may not work too loud. Maybe not. But this is the translation. This is Gonzalo that I was sharing with you earlier. Turn down mine. Maybe. All right, so basically what he did, he started out quoting Ephesians 6:10 through 11. I sent him a message one day on WhatsApp, and I said, hey, can you just send me a video thanking the people that supported me coming down there? And this is what he sent me. He quoted Ephesians 6:10 through 11. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. And then what he said after that was, good afternoon, I am Second Sergeant Jose Gonzalo Mendez. I belong to the Special Operations Group of the National Police of Ecuador. I am thanking immensely all of the followers, those who have contributed your help to the Lord, for coming here to our country and helping with your medical and tactical knowledge, and the most important, which is the Word of God. I thank you very much for having given. Thank you very much. It's a solid guy, and I appreciated him doing that. And you see that flag behind them, that's their Special Operations flag. That's their emblem. So those guys are very proud of that. Like I said, it's very militaristic, so there's a lot on what they do. And then this was a video too. Okay. All right, but yeah, that was my trip to Ecuador with working with the police there. The whole goal of going on that trip was to learn this ministry's model and see if it's something I could recreate for EMS and fire in the future. Really positive, really strong, really impactful. My challenge would be to y'all would be to consider your local first responders, police, fire, and EMS. I can promise you they're struggling in ways that if you've never done it, you can't understand, you can't imagine. I've shared with Matt, for me, just this year, we pulled a 3-year-old out of the lake in Abbeville County, little girl on the bottom of the lake, and we pulled her out. And the only way I can describe it to people is something broke in me that day. And I walked away from that call, and I've seen and done a lot of things, seen a lot of tragedy, a lot of things, and maybe that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me in the moment. But I remember walking away from that thing going, I'm not doing this anymore. I am done. I was ready to give up all of the paramedic stuff that I do, all of the volunteer firefighting, anything else I do. I was ready. I was pricing stump grinders, and I was going to go become a stump grinder and work on my own and eat at the local Cold Spring Cafe in Abbeville County for lunch, and just do whatever I wanted to do. I was ready to hang it up, but I didn't, and because I know you don't make big life-changing decisions in those moments, right? But you never know how your local first responders, you never know what they're going through, what they're seeing daily, and I know they would definitely benefit from any encouragement that you could give them, even if it's just stopping them on the side of the road and just thanking them. They definitely will benefit from that. So, thank you all.
Elijah, we really thank you for your great service.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions for Elijah? You don't have to put money in the bucket if you don't want to.
The helicopter, was that theirs to keep and use, or was it just part of the training brought in, and who owns it, whatever?
So it's theirs. The National Police of Ecuador own that. So they're going to use it for police work and then also for rescues. You saw those volcanoes, they're super high. People try to hike those for whatever reason. Not me. They try to hike those and then they get up there and realize it's too cold, it's too steep, there's not enough oxygen, and they need to be rescued. So they're going to use it for those rescues. But they really want to use it for rapid medical transport too. They don't have anyone right now that knows how to do that. So, yep, but it's theirs. And they already have pilots, so they're ready.
I don't have a question. I just
Sure.
want to say thank you guys. Helicopter transport is one of those things you don't really think about until you need it, and then it is life-changing.
That's right. You're right.
Did you bring any brochures from the company? Like, do you have any deals? I bought a 25-year thing several years back. I think it'll take me out to age 95, so I probably won't be driving after that, but I hope I'll never use it. But
Yeah. As far as locally,
yeah.
I don't have any of those. I know our companies, I'm not here technically representing the company I work for, but they do have those. It's called Air Med Care Network. And that, the way that works is basically if you buy a membership into the company, you ever need to be flown for an emergent reason, then you have the membership, you don't get billed. It's kind of how that works, but it's Air Med Care Network.
It's a heck of a deal. I don't know, all of you probably weren't here a few years back when they came and visited us, but I ended up buying 25 years for $1,100. And that's less than $50 a year, I think.
I was gonna say, I think the yearly rate's like $75 a year, $75 a year, or something like that.
And it costs, I've heard it costs a lot of money to have a helicopter come in and save your life.
And here locally, that covers, we have a helicopter in Anderson, one in Greenville, one in Spartanburg, and then I actually manage the airplane in Greenville, and that's, it covers that also.
It's upward of $40,000 for a 15-minute ride right there. It's worth it.
I was gonna say too, I don't know if it's still active, but if you're a member of the Lawrence Chamber of Commerce, then there's a discount.
Okay.
Then you can get a discount for it, at least you could 5 years ago. So.
Yeah, it may still be, I'm not sure.
We just renewed, so it, we got it again. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elijah, for coming, and thank y'all for the great questions, and hopefully this was informative. I know he's kind of talked to me about different things before, but I learned something new every single time, and nobody anybody sticking anything down my nose unless we absolutely have to. That COVID test was bad enough. All right, so just a couple things. Michaela, thank you for coming. Thank you, John, for reminding me that Michaela came so that I'll remember to take her home. Also, we've got backpack tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. And next week we will be at the Ridge. I want us to have a sock contest next week. So Christmas socks preferably, but ugly socks period. We will have a judging and the winner will win a gift card of some form. Okay? Jim, I expect to see some fancy socks out of it. Yeah. So that'll be next week at the Ridge. Don't forget to dig out your socks or go by the thrift store or something. Find something weird. Elijah, thank you for coming. I think you'll stick around for a little bit if anybody else has any questions. If we will stand, we'll do our 4-way test and our motto. Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned?
Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
And our motto?
Serve above self.
Serve to change lives, period.